Hello brains! There are a lot of ways to advocate and educate about ADHD, and TikTok is one of them. ADHD TikTok is now a thing, and it's been really cool for me to see just how many people are speaking openly about ADHD and educating people about it. So I sat down with a few of my favorite ADHD TikTokers to ask them about their work and the changes that they're hoping to make or see in the world. Let's pick some brains. Go ahead and introduce yourself. For those of you who don't know who you are you?
Hi, everybody. I'm Catieosaurus. I am an ADHD advocate, neurodivergent educator.
I am Dani Donovan. I am a ADHD content creator and soon-to-be author. I have been making comics and TikToks, hilarious tweets.
I'm Elyse Myers. I am a comedian, TikToker, content creator, all the things. I like to tell stories online.
You're an incredible storyteller, and your TikTok started with a story, right?
I was making content at the height of the pandemic just for fun. And then the video that kind of got everybody's attention was the taco story. And that's when I realized people really liked my storytelling.
How did you go from talking about tacos to talking about ADHD? What made you start talking about ADHD?
Well, I mean, I've always kind of talked about like mental health or ADHD, things like that. It's just never been weird for me. And so it kind of naturally seemed like it baked itself into my stories, because a lot of the reasons why I would get into these like really bizarre predicaments usually are either my anxiety or my ADHD. Yeah, it just makes sense to kind of share about it because it's something I deal with every single day. And it's a lot of the reasons why my personality is the way that it is.
What got you talking about ADHD in the first place?
Funny story. I did not get diagnosed until I was a freshman in college and my life was falling apart. I really did fly under the radar for a while and then started to seeing some more like mental health comics that were usually about like anxiety or depression. And then I found your YouTube channel and I was like, I'm going to watch these videos. And you mean that's why laundry is hard? And I just like crying. I'm like crying about finding out that laundry is hard because of this thing that totally makes sense. Coworkers that I felt really comfortable talking to who had opened up about therapy themselves. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to tell them I have ADHD. And I told them and they were like, yeah. Being able to open up with them, making my first ADHD comic, being encouraged to, post about it. And that first storytelling comic going viral was really this big moment for me to realize like, okay, everyone in the comments, right, feels super seen. And so I wanted to start, making more content about ADHD.
I'd always been a theater person. I was working as like a professional actor and director and stuff at the same time. And then March 13th, the entire world shut down. And I watched the industry that I had been working in for the past 15 years of my life just disappear overnight. And it was terrifying. And I needed something to do. And as it happens, I have a kid sister who's like 12 years younger than me. And she was like, there's like this cool app that all the cool kids are using. It's called TikTok. And I was like, all right. So I started kind of making like just random, videos. I didn't really know what I was doing. But at the time, there was this trend going around TikTok that was things in my insert your circumstance here house that just makes sense. But the thing that I found myself deeply annoyed about with this trend was that everybody who was doing the trend had like a magazine house. They had like the picture perfect, like Pinterest, like mom blog house. And I had a literal pile of garbage in my hallway. And so I made one that was things in my ADHD house that just makes sense. And I just like roasted myself and I just went around my house and I was like, here's the pile of boxes that I've been sitting here for 6 months. The dishes that I haven't done. Here's the clutter that I forgot existed until I made this video. And it went super viral. I was kind of just sitting there. I was like, I didn't even think that was that good of a joke, but okay. But in the comments over and over and over again, people kept saying, I've never seen a house that looks like mine. And so then somebody asked a question. I don't remember what it was, but it was like some ADHD question. And I said, oh, well, here's how I do that. And then that video did pretty well. And then the next video that I did pretty well. And then all of a sudden I had like a lot of people listening to me talk about ADHD.
Why TikTok? Like you said, it was because you started on this platform and it just kind of happened accidentally. But why did you stay there?
I mean, I guess like the real truth is that I found a community there. A lot of times, like my videos won't get that many views because they're hyper specific. And so the thing that I liked about TikTok was that I had this opportunity to reach a lot of people, but at the same time, like as I created my community, a lot of people started coming to my platform specifically to find the information. So it became a lot more of an exchange.
I had downloaded TikTok and I was like, ugh, I hate this. I don't like it. And I like uninstalled it. And then I had a friend and she goes, okay, download TikTok. I'm going to send you some funny videos. I'm like, I don't like TikTok. Don't make me do it. And she was like, download it. I'm going to send you the videos, like them, and your feed will get better. And so I did. And since I liked a bunch of those videos, you know, my For You page was like, okay, these are the types of videos you're into. And so that got better. I was getting like sucked in, and then I was making little ones that had nothing to do with ADHD. I made like a little one drawing with music in the background, and I made one about like Nebraska colleges. I made some about like graphic designers, and then I made an ADHD one, and it took off, and I'm like, man, I guess I'm doing that here now too.
So what are your favorite, I know you talk about a lot more than ADHD. What's your favorite kind of content to make?
I love sharing stories where like my people pleaser is like just outweighs any amount of anxiety or like no that's happening in my brain. Just like I will just, yep, that's great. That sounds great. And I will end up in situations that are so uncomfortable or horrible. The taco story is literally the perfect example of me being a people pleaser, to the point where I like purchased $150 of tacos and kept going after that. That wasn't the last straw. Like, what? And I think that when the taco video first came out, it was hard for people to understand that like a normal person could get in that situation. And I'm like, have you never been on a bad date that you just wanted to end? So you just said yes so that it like the date would end? Like, I don't understand. Has this never happened to you?
Part of it's the ADHD and part of it's being socialized female, right? Like you're taught to be polite and not to be rude. And often the safest thing is just to go along with it. And if you don't piss them off, then they won't hurt you. So
yes.
That's how you end up buying $150 worth of tacos. So I'm curious, like, where do you get the information you share?
I just get them because they work for me. So a lot of the things I'm sharing are things that I have kind of found that have hacked my life a little bit. I'm very careful to not share like too much, like medical wise, because there's a very fine line between, you know, being helpful and hurtful in that way. But I share a lot of like things that I've done to cope with my lack of concentration or my anxiety, things like that. Like it's helped me in my life. And so it would feel weird to keep it to myself.
When I'm making content, I typically have always made content coming from life experience first. That was because like you can't tell me that how I feel is wrong. But like, because I think as content creators, being sure to be really careful on what type of information we're putting out there, that it's accurate, that we're doing, you know, research, and that research is being confirmed in more than one spot. For anything that's informational, I always want to make sure that I am checking out like peer-reviewed journals and multiple sources so I can double check that the information I'm sharing is accurate.
Most of it comes directly from peer-reviewed studies. I always feel bad when I say this because people ask me for book recommendations a lot, but I tend to hate most every book that's ever been written about ADHD, because a lot of times it's either written from the perspective of somebody who doesn't have ADHD, or they do have ADHD, but they have ADHD in a different way than my ADHD, or they are an old white man, and that lived experience is very different. And so when I started like really looking into ADHD and trying to understand, I realized that there is a just frankly like shocking amount of information that exists out there, but so much of it isn't in, you know, whatever you want to call the mainstream. And it's because it's living in journals, it's living in, you know, like just different like studies and peer-reviewed information and that kind of stuff. And so that was the thing that really excited me about like doing that like on the ground research, because it's like that way you're getting sort of like the first look and you have the opportunity to say, okay, well, is this study like actually representative of people? Are they including women? Are they including people of color? Like, how are these studies being done? And what you start to realize is that there is a lot of like pervasive issues with a lot of ADHD science as it is right now, because there still are a lot of communities that are being underrepresented. And so as an ADHD advocate, I feel like that also gives me a really wonderful opportunity to be like, hey, like maybe we should talk about trans people with ADHD. Like maybe we should start focusing on these like different issues in order to better serve the community of people that has ADHD as a whole.
So are you involved in developing new research studies then?
Oh God, no, I'm not smart enough for that. I wish I was.
But calling for it, right? Like, and I've been doing that in my videos too, like the ADHD in women. I was like, honestly, this is on cis women, and we do need research on trans women, on the trans population in general.
Absolutely. Even though I'm not like in a position where I can like call on science to do the research, what I can do is consistently say every month, like, hey, here are thousands of people who want an answer to this question. Let's go science and put that out into the world.
I mean, science communication is so important, right? Because you're right that there's so much research out there already that has not yet made it into the hands of the people who need it, that I think science communication is so important. And I'm so glad you're doing it, especially with your background as a researcher. What change are you hoping to make in the world or see in the world in terms of how it treats neurodiversity or ADHD?
The main thing that I really would love to see in the world is people with ADHD not feeling afraid to be themselves and to talk about having ADHD or the struggles that their ADHD is causing them. And then the people that, they're talking to about it to be more understanding of ADHD and what it is, what it looks like, and that we're not doing it on purpose. Maybe they can save some space for us, that even if they don't understand what it's like in our brain, that they've seen enough stuff online that they know we're not making it up.
I'm hoping to make anxiety, ADHD, mental health. I think that those are topics that should feel super comfy being talked about. And I think that they don't just exist in like a clinical cold manner, like in a doctor's office, but they can be talked about online and not be weird. And number two, I hope to kind of bridge a gap between like people at home and like the celebrity world, because I think that for a long time we have believed that celebrities are a little untouchable, or they don't have weird moments happen to them. And if they do, you see them talked about in a weird, funny, quirky way, not like I was literally shaking, having a panic attack kind of way. You know what I mean?
I think if I have helped a single person, a single solitary person feel less broken and less alone and understand themselves and understand what is going on with them. If I can help that one singular person understand that they are not alone and that it is not their fault and that what they are going through is common, an experience that so many neurodivergent people share, I think all of this will have been worth it.
Here's all of this content that people can share and say, like, look, it's not just me. And so I think that creators being able to make that stuff and give people those tools to share their stories and share their experiences is just going to have such a big impact on decreasing that stigma and spreading awareness.
I just want people to understand that neurodivergency looks different on everybody. And this idea that everybody with ADHD acts the same, everybody with ADHD, is like, whatever they think, like that's not the case. And there are so many people with ADHD and whatever neurodivergency it may be out there achieving extraordinary things in spite of a lack of support, a lack of awareness, a lack of understanding, stigmatized healthcare, access to medication. Like there's so many barriers that neurodivergent people have to fight through to get where they are. And so I really wish that people understood that when you see a neurodivergent person who is successful,
just know what they're up against.
Yeah, know what they're up against. Exactly.
It is such a pleasure. I can't thank you enough for being on. I'm so excited for this. I want to support what you're doing. So can you, 15, 30 seconds, how can we support you?
A couple of things I'm honestly really excited about. One is I've kind of started to dive into the world of Patreon. It feels like it's investing back into me too. I found my tribe there, which has been awesome. We're in production now for a podcast, which is really cool. That's like more long form content that I've been really craving to make. And so that's another thing I'm excited about.
So I've got a book coming out. It's called The Anti-Planner, How to Get Done When You Don't Feel Like It. And it goes through a bunch of different emotions like being stuck and overwhelmed. And it's got a bunch of different activities and games depending on what negative emotions you're dealing with that are causing you to procrastinate. it's got different ideas for how to get past those.
So I'm Catieosaurus across all social media. I have a TikTok, obviously. I have a Twitch. I have a YouTube channel. I have an Instagram and a Twitter. I also have a podcast. It's called Katie and Eric's Infinite Quest. We talk about life with ADHD and depression and navigating life as neurodivergent adults. I'm also I think I just said I have YouTube, but I'm venturing off into YouTube more. I'm going to start doing a lot more about ADHD and intimacy. So if you want to check that out, you can. And I think that's all of the things that I can tell you on your channel.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for coming on and talking. It's really nice to connect with you. Thank you to my brain advocates and all my Patreon brains for making content like this possible. I think we're making a difference in the world, and so are these TikTokers. Like, subscribe, click all the things. Let us know if you liked this interview and if you'd like to see us do more. And I'll see you next video. Bye, brains.